What's up, 2025, number one channel in spiritual and intellectual honesty. So, just like my introduction, right? I just really want to get into the core essence, just the core essence, right, of what we've been experiencing the past 3 days. Well, more than 3 days, about the past few days with all this Charlie Kirk business, the people on both sides. So what I have to say is mostly when it comes to propaganda, racism, political stance, most people who take these stances, right, they do it because of emotions. They don't do it because of logic and reasoning. And racism is nothing more than emotionalism. I don't care how many statistics they try to throw at you and how they try to utilize logic and reasoning, because, statistics can be manipulated. I synced it personally, studied it personally with the pandemic and all them issues with the, people not living. Okay, I studied all that, so I know personally how statistics can be manipulated and used, right? But it's even further. Okay, when it comes to white supremacy and the core essence, the people who really believe, who think they believe in white supremacy, right? White supremacy, right, is supposed to preserve the white race, right? It's supposed to keep the white race going. But the people who really talk about the core essence of that, right, they're not really doing anything to preserve. They're not really making any families. They're not doing anything to fortify the family. It's just all propaganda, all feelings. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Racism is just an opiate to make of just feelings. And it's on the other end of the spectrum. One is superior, one is inferior. And from all these what's been going on, I could see as many different spectrums. It's not just black and white with that. I mean, you have blacks who feel inferior, but they want the illusion of feeling superior. This is why they go to, they take in white supremacy. They envy that, right? They want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of imperialism and colonialism, right? Which is emotional based also. As far as being superior. So we see the spectrums, right? There's no logic. Logic and reason has left the building. We see these people with these political ideologies. They have no morals or any type of way, any religious morals, any social morals. They just fuel their emotions with being disagreeable, of hate. Emotions don't have to make sense. It just have to make sense for us. And with our egos, we go to people and we go to groups that will co-sign for us. You understand? The ego is very funny. This is very tricky and funny thing. This is why when it comes to certain things, it's always best to try to be objective, especially when you have people who are bringing you some type of philosophy. Because the ego, I give myself an example. When I first saw Charlie Kirk, when he was talking about Black Lives Matter, I was like, oh, okay, I agreed. He told me some new stuff, but he didn't really tell me nothing new because I know how all these organizations are, right? But this is how you get dragged in. You get dragged in emotionally if you're not objective, right? Because people say certain things to agree and you get dragged in. Oh, I agree, I agree, I agree, I agree. And then you get forced, psychologically smothered to agree to things that you normally wouldn't agree. Propaganda is a science. So we have to be honest in what people say. Now, I'm just going to go into a few things talking about what he said, right? One of the things when he was saying with the pilot, right? Saying if I was on a plane and I saw that the pilot was black, I'll be concerned if he was qualified. Now, that's emotional based, right? That's the people who are already racist, who already want to believe that black people are superior, or even with black people as far as, their inferiorities, right? So that was what you call a dishonest statement, right? Because in actuality, right, pilots, they have to go through many different trainings. They have to be on a plane with a pilot hundreds of hours, right? It's not like the theory of affirmative action where you can just push a person through. I mean, that's crazy, right? But people don't want to think, right? People want to just fuel their emotions on what they already feel. The other things what he talks about as far as affirmative action, right? Affirmative action, with Bill Clinton when he really pushed the policies, right? These policies, right, influences culture. These certain policies influence culture, right? Bill Clinton, Obama, these, certain policies. But affirmative action, right, was one of those esoteric, policies. Affirmative action supported white women over all the minorities, right? Because on a technicality, white women are they're a minority because they're women, but they're the biggest of all the populations, over blacks, over everyone, which is an oxymoron, which is, really doesn't really make sense. But that's what it was. And that's what pushed white women out into education, into the corporate fields, right? And now where politics is steady emerging and transforming and becoming, right? That's why one of the reasons why all the divorces and everything, right? Because the psychological factors of men and women, these people are very adept, right? They're basically doing the most unnatural thing, making unnatural things natural, pinning, men against women, right? Divide and conquer amongst men and women, right, is crazy. But it was predicted that these times were going to come. There were people who saw these things happening. So all these unnatural waves in culture, right, that's destroying the family. But getting back to his dishonesty, right, if you're talking about affirmative action, you have to talk about that. He didn't talk about that. He used the stereotype of affirmative action of the black man. The black man is, and women too. He used women too, the black woman, but he didn't really talk about white women. That's dishonest, right? So anybody who's coming to you with divide and conquer dishonestly, when you think about it, isn't right. They're not coming with solutions. All these black people who think that Charlie Kirk is their, soldier in Christ, because he's a so-called martyr, because he died. They don't understand. They just go by the emotionalism of him dying, the emotionalism of, oh, he said some stuff about being Christian and this and that. And they tied themselves to that, and their inferiority complex of white people, of putting white people above them and putting white people as being smarter than them. These are things, let me tell you something with me. Still have many insecurities, many feelings of inadequacies, just like every human being. But one thing, I have never, not one time, wished that I was white. I have never envied white people because they're the so-called rulers. Not one time. I have never thought that white people were smarter because they're conquering, they're ruling. Never thought that. And I believe that's not necessarily the way I was raised, although I got to give a little credit to that. It's just the way I was just built, what my ancestors gave me, as far as the higher my higher faculties, as far as seeing the world, which ain't nothing I'm bragging on, because it's been a rough ride, baby. Okay, not being like everybody else, not thinking like everybody else. But I'm grateful because I have never felt insecurity of, being black. Never felt that. Never thought they were better. Never wanted to be like them in no shape, form, or fashion. Just how I was built. But understanding the consciousness of other people, I can't understand. I can't see how it happens. And it's basically, like I said, the way you get drawn in is the emotionalism, And let me tell you something. White people envied us really bad. This is the reason why we have Trump. Let me break this down. Obama, right? And anybody who knows me knows how I feel about Obama, right? So I'm not going to get into that. But when Obama was president for 8 years, white people who really knew the system, even, better than we, do, because they put it in, they felt envious of us, right? I noticed this, right? Now, look, I have never, ever voted. But call it what you will, it did give me a certain objective consciousness in seeing the world. I've been paying attention to politics ever since I was 14 years old, and paying attention to the movement of culture, Had to be a witness of what the world is going through. But white people envied us. They envied our delusion. When it came to Obama and how we was all hyped up and we was all like he was our savior, like he was, even though they knew it was bullshit, they envied that. They was like, man, we need to put somebody in. So let me tell you something. If you like Obama, if you hate his guts, you have him to blame, good or bad, for Trump, good or bad for Biden, good or bad for Kamala Harris. He's responsible for all that. But yeah, they did. They envied us. I synced it, witnessed it. They envied our delusion, which is sad, 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 and crazy. So this is the reason, one of the reasons that that pumped all these different views and feelings. All these are different feelings, right? Of politics. This is why we have all these factions. This is why we have all this confusion as far as who is, you know, who did what, what was the views of the person who committed the, the unaliving. These extreme views that make no sense, that didn't make sense 7 years ago, really, that we didn't even know about. These people with extreme moral, well, lack of morals. No morals, no type of spiritual morals or social morals. Just anything to fuel their hatred and their dissatisfaction in life and their destruction. That's all what it is. But as black people, man, we have to start being more objective and seeing stuff for what it is. Because if you are emotionally based, and this is getting worse and worse with the internet, the way the internet is designed, it only goes with what you like. You don't hear anything. You don't see, back in the day, right? We used to, we didn't have the internet. When I was looking at politics and everything, we didn't have that. We only had basically talk radio. Like me, I used to watch Rush Limbaugh when I was a teenager. I used to watch him before I went to bed. And then I used to listen to the radio to a guy who was a Marxist-Leninist. But he still made more sense than the people do today, because that's how it was back in the day. It was more logic and reasoning, and J Marvin, right, WLS, man, he used to really break down stuff as far as with the esoteric politics thing. You think that a policy means one thing, but it means another. You think a policy funds one thing and it funds another. This is one of the things that with Elon Musk, why he really couldn't get the esoteric politics. This is why he didn't do anything. He couldn't do anything. He didn't understand the gist of the whole thing. That wasn't his gift, He couldn't be a master opportunist with that because it was too much, it's too much red tape and too much stuff going on for him to really understand. You had to be a certain type of mind to understand that type of politics. But yeah, man, this is all what I get. Really, I ain't really got too much more to say, man. It's just that the religious blacks really, really disappointed me. How they reacted. It was just purely emotional. It had nothing to do with their religion. And, Charlie Kirk was not part with them, was not their brother in any type of way, was not their amigo in any type of way, was not a neighbor in any type of way. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. So here's the thing, and a lot of people don't understand this whole thing with propaganda. Propaganda is everywhere. It's really bad on the internet. They want your attention. They want your mind. At least they want everything, your body, your soul, your spirit, but at least your attention, at least your mind, right? At least they want to have that. But Charlie Kirk said something, about And see, here's the thing with the emotionalism, right? And not understanding the science of propaganda. He said to one black person, oh, race is a social construct. It has nothing to do with DNA. People are bringing out all these things, all these little tidbits and, trying to show, oh, he wasn't that bad. He wasn't racist. And that's part of the whole thing, right? See, racism and the rhetoric of racism, right, is about confusion. What he said was only half true. See, race, when it comes to race right now, they can't just outright discriminate against you, right? The banks, the credit companies, right? They use social constructs to discriminate you. Give you an example. Give a perfect example. With the credit card companies, right? Just say a person lives in Inglewood, the ghetto of Chicago, where I'm from, or they live in Roseland. They have the 8.50 credit score, right? I think that's the perfect credit score. That credit score doesn't hold the same weight as a person who lives in Naperville, or a person who lives in Wilmette, the most richest suburb in Illinois, or other richer places, right? It doesn't have the same weight. So because of the area, they discriminate you according to your area, where you are socially, which is discrimination, which is just another more advanced, more technical form of racial discrimination. You understand? So 850 perfect credit score ain't 50 everywhere. Especially in a place like Illinois that is extremely, extremely segregated. So this is what I'm saying. So that's true. And this is how people confuse people with propaganda. They'll tell you something true to confuse you. And this dude, I just see him just smirking, saying these things like, these people are so stupid. Charlie, let me tell you something. He was a martyr for trolls, basically. He was the best troll ever. Best troll ever. Of just antagonizing and just, you know what I'm saying, man. You know the deal. So, yeah. So, man, don't just be so quick to think that people are your friend just because they say a couple of things that you agree with. We know how messed up our people are, how much help that the black ghetto community needs. We already know this. We know this. They know it. Even though they don't, necessarily admit it, right? But if a person is coming with criticism and rhetoric against you, that's destroying your reputation. And really, black folks, we ain't even really get off the ground yet. We ain't got shit in this country as far as any type of infrastructure, any type of really things that we control. We don't own any banks. We don't own nothing. But we got money though. We spend lots of money. So this is the thing. So racism for people to control us has to be remixed. It has to be re-propagandized. It has to go through all these things, right? We have to know the game. And if you don't know yourself and know that you are a victim, basically, of subconscious white supremacy, that you think that white people are so smart and you think they're so better because they rule, and you don't understand all the things they have to do. You don't remember what they did to get there. You just see the result, and you don't understand what they had to do, what they had to destroy. They had to destroy themselves, destroying the world, trying to destroy the world, the earth themselves, man, to get where they are, to stay what they are. You know, that's something that other groups may not have did, you know, as aggressively. There are rules in war. Even war has rules, right? You don't poison wells. You don't attack civilians. There's certain rules that war has, but we see that there are no rules. You know, there are no rules. You know, when it comes to white supremacy and supremacy of the others, we'll say, right? You know, so, hey man, that's about it. I'll talk to y'all soon.